Welcome to another transition episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're going to get. Welcome to our conversation on the 2024 Player's Handbook. I'm Adam, and with me are Terry and Tyler.
This episode is the third part of our discussion on what's changed between 5th edition and the new updated rule set.
So you guys weren't on the first two episodes. We've already gone through kind of how to build characters and then a bunch of the combat mechanics and whatnot. So today what we're going to jump into is equipment and feats, because there were a lot of really subtle changes in here. And it's going to give you kind of an idea about how to handle the new player's handbook and the new way that the combat and the action economy works. But before we jump into that, have you guys had the opportunity to look through the player's handbook yet?
No, I haven't seen anything of the new player's handbook. Nothing. I'm going in completely blind.
I've actually been reading through the handbook, and I've actually been quite thoroughly enjoying it and seeing just how much has changed and being pleasantly surprised by it.
So here's a quick breakdown for you, Terry, to bring you up to speed. First and foremost, the layout of the player's handbook, way easier to use. It is such an easy book, and it no longer really reads like a textbook. All the info is still in there, but it's far more user-friendly right off the bat. It's not nearly as intimidating as it used to be. And it actually walks you through how to build a character. In the 2014 one, it focused on choosing your race first and then your class, and then everyone forgot about backgrounds. This one focuses on you choose your class first, and every single one of them has 4 subclasses. We still don't have the artificer or the artificer, as you say. But we have 48 subclasses across 12 classes. Then it gets into breakdowns, and the stat increases now, like the +2 to con, +1 to strength, whatever. All of that is in the background now, because it matters more about what your personal life was instead of what species that you are. Most of the species have been really kind of flattened out to be just kind of like different takes on humans as far as the mechanics go. All the lore is still there, but there's only a couple of little differences to make an elf different from a human instead of the whole like wild amount of info there was before. Also, they scooped out a lot of the lore. The reason they've done this is because they wanted to be campaign setting agnostic, which means that you can take a player's handbook character and drop it into Eberron, Dragonlance, or Greyhawk or Forgotten Realms or wherever, right? And it's not going to be too different. And when they release the campaign books, we're going to get more information about what makes a gnome unique in Spelljammer as opposed to the Forgotten Realms. So we also covered a bunch of combat stuff. Combat is largely the same idea, but there are some little mechanical differences. Conditions work differently. Exhaustion works much differently. And there's a lot of these little rule changes, but the best thing about the player's handbook is that there is a rules glossary in the back of the book now. So
this has been so helpful.
Oh, it's amazing. You not only have the table of contents, and an index at the back, the way that you always did, but now you have this rules glossary, which just breaks down just a shit ton of different items. Let me go through it really quickly with you.
It's in alphabetical order, I believe, isn't it?
It is, which is very helpful.
Yeah, it was the first thing I read in the handbook.
Yeah, so here's kind of what you can find in there. You get definitions for all of these things. Definitive, clear wording, so there's no confusion. You get all the different actions that you can take during combat, including dodging and disengaging. It covers attack actions, bonus actions, and reactions. There's all the areas of effects and conditions. There's they brought back from 4th edition the idea of being bloodied, which is at 50% of your hit points or below, you have what's considered bloody. You are bloodied. It's not a condition, but it acts like it. There are a lot of monsters, not a lot. There's some monsters in the monster manual which have different reactions to creatures becoming bloody. Like the Gnoll, if it sees an opponent that's bloodied, it gets an extra attack because it goes into a frenzy. So it gets into that, gets into saving throws get defined, critical hits, breaking objects, damage thresholds, death saves and being stabilized, light, obscured areas, and cover. All of these are in the rules glossary, along with damage rolls and damage types, there's no real differences there. Healing, hit points, AC, and rests. Rests have changed actually a little bit, and it's cool to look into how they work. It's a lot more forgiving for players. Immunities, resistances, vulnerabilities, initiative. It has very clear rules now about how to knock somebody out instead of killing them, and what happens if someone is surprised in initiative. It gets into occupying spaces and all the different movement types, passive perception, and hiding, poisons and exhaustion, readying actions, temporary hit points, unarmed strikes, and what constitutes a weapon attack, because there was confusion about that when you got into the weeds in 5th edition. So there's this rules glossary at the beginning that is so helpful for players, and you as a dungeon master would often have a lot of that stuff inside the DM screen, and now I feel like I can turn to my players and say, yeah, how does that work? Look it up in the rules glossary.
Yeah, I love that.
So
that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and then other than that, we have some feats which are no longer, and multi-classing too. These are not like optional customizational bits anymore. They're straight up parts of D&D, so they're acknowledged as such. Like there's a part in every single one of the classes for what is the benefit of going into this class at level 1, and what's the benefit and what do you need to do if you're going to do it to multi-class. Right, so there's that's right in the class chapter, like where the class is listed out, including all of the spell lists are with the classes now. They're not with the with the spells anymore, so you don't have to flip through a whole bunch of different pages when you're leveling up.
It's also nice in the digital one. If you want like D&D Beyond, it has the links like right in there. So if you come across it and if it's highlighted, you can it'll take you to that section right away.
Yeah, and it has a lot of the mounts and pets and beasts and stuff are listed in the back of the player's handbook, so you don't have to run to a monster manual. Like it's really well laid out. So, but I've already done 2 episodes on a lot of it, so let's jump into how the equipment has changed. And of course, I want to start off with weapons and armor. And the very first thing I want to say is armor has not changed.
Thank God.
It is exactly the way that it was before, and almost identical tables. Weapons are largely the same, except lances went down a die size, tridents went up a die size, and the war pick is now considered versatile, which means you can use 2 hands to do more damage. Also, the net is no longer listed as a weapon. It is listed with the gear, and I'll talk about that in a minute here. We also get a musket and a pistol. They're added to the list of martial ranged weapons, but there's no way to make them any faster with their loading properties. So they're not really the best, most usable things, but they're fun, they're great, and they're not overpowered. They're still rolling, I think, D12. I think 1 D12 is the maximum.
Which I think is a great, this is how I wanted it to be added in for these.
Yeah, Terry, how do you feel about us so far with the getting firearms in D&D?
Yeah, I'm good with it. I do like a good firearm in D&D, and I'm all right. I mean, I'm sure it comes with a bunch of questions for me already, but I'm sure they'll be answered. But no, I'm excited about it.
It's actually really streamlined. They function almost like a heavy crossbow. So there's not a whole bunch more to that. Like you need 2 hands to wield the musket, and you need to stop and load it, and it takes forever to do that. Right. And so which
it should be.
Yeah. And that makes sense. It's a musket. It's funny because when you look at them, the art for them, and I mean, you can make it whatever you want, but the art for them is more like the American Revolution and less like pirates. I always thought of a blunderbuss and that kind of stuff, but it's not really accurate. When you look at the art style that they've given us, it's a little bit more refined. So weapon proficiencies are a little bit different. Heavy weapons used to give disadvantage to tiny or small creatures if they held something that was just way too heavy for them. But now you just have disadvantage with melee weapons if your strength isn't at least 13, or disadvantage with ranged weapons if your dex isn't at least 13. So heavy weapons became a little bit more usable and palatable for the martial kind of characters, but spellcasters that, tank their strength are still going to have difficulty with, a great sword. Now,
this makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Instead of having to flip to another chapter to learn about 2-weapon fighting, which you had to do in the 2014 Player's Handbook, It's now included in the description of light weapons because you can only do 2-weapon fighting when you have 2 light weapons. So there's still, I think, a feat for it, or the fighting style for it. But like the base rule is it's all light weapons. So, and that's pretty much what we have for weapons and armor right off the bat. Do you guys have any thoughts about it before I jump into the next part?
I don't hate it. There's nothing here which stands out where I'm immediately against it. I can adapt to this, and I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, I find that it's much more simplified, but not in a way that it seems childish.
Yeah.
It just seems much more streamlined, easier to use, and still fun to play.
Now, I agree with you guys. This feels very straightforward. It's going to be easy to, take a half step from 5th edition into 5.5. But while we have weapon properties, and that tells us what we need to know about the weapon, there are also weapon masteries, and these are how we use the weapons. So every weapon has a weapon mastery now that's attached to it, and this is all a brand new mechanic, and I'm going to get into each of them right here. But before I do, only some classes will actually get access to weapon masteries. And so multi-classing, I believe, will open these up for you if you're not one of the classes. And you only have a maximum number of weapons that you can use masteries for, and you have to swap it during a long rest. So the idea here is that every one of the weapons listed in the player's handbook has 1 weapon mastery and a couple of weapon proficiencies as they need. The weapon masteries allow you to do extra things with the weapon, but you have to choose, is it going to be for long swords? Is it going to be for short bows? Is it going to be for the blowgun with the darts, or is it going to be for like a sickle, right?
It's going to be for the net.
No, nets are no longer a weapon.
I don't care. I want it to be a weapon.
What? Because they're a tool?
They're gear now, and I'll get into them. They've changed a little bit, but I think they're more usable now.
That is very fair.
So when we're talking about weapon masteries, there are only 5 of the classes that get access to using them. Paladins, Rangers, and Rogues, they get the ability to use 2 different weapon masteries. So they can have like a short sword and a dagger for a rogue, or a long bow and a short sword for a ranger, right? Barbarians start with 2, but as they level up, they will actually get more and more so that they can swap out weapons in the middle of combat. And stowing or drawing weapons is part of the attack action now. So barbarians start with 2, they'll end up with 4 by the time that they get into tier 4. Fighters start with 3, and they end up with 6, because fighters tend to walk around carrying a freaking arsenal, right? Yeah. So, and that's it. Those are the only ones that get it. So your warlock, your bard, even your monk does not get access to any weapon masteries.
When you actually look if you look at the classes though, they don't need them. The ones that don't get it, they don't need them.
No, I wonder if we're going to see this added to some subclasses. I've not dug through all the subclasses, so there might be something like that, but I haven't seen it myself yet. So
I just finished actually reading the classes chapter, and there was nothing in the subclasses for the masteries, like additional on top of this.
I wonder, because we're going to get the blade singing subclass for the wizard coming up at the end of the year.
That could be.
So, but let's get into the masteries directly. So there are a handful of them. I think there's 8. So let me kind of break down what they do and what they're for. So first off, we finally get Cleave back in Dungeons & Dragons.
Oh, this just brings back good memories and bad memories.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to go through this, and Terry, you're going to be sitting there shaking your head this whole time, because you're going to see that this makes the martial classes more powerful.
Yeah.
In a big way. However, they were lagging behind on the power scale from spellcasters in the first place. So this brings them up to speed, and a lot of the monsters got more powerful. So it's actually kind of an even playing field still. So with Cleave, this is only for the Great Axe and the Halberd. If you hit on an attack, you can roll to attack a second creature within range, but you don't add your ability modifier to the damage, you roll in the second attack. So I hit the guy to my left, I did damage to him, and because it's a Great Axe, I continue my swing, I hit the guy on my right. It does less damage.
I have a question.
Yep.
Can it be controlled, or is it whatever creature is on, like, next to it?
No, it's you choose any second creature within range.
Okay, so it isn't like it used to be.
No. So the next one is for the greatsword and the glaive only, and it's called Graze. This is the big one that scared me at first. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, okay, it's fine. If you miss with an attack, you can still do damage, but that damage is equal to your ability modifier that you used to make the attack, which is only going to be at maximum of +5, right?
Right.
That's not a bad idea.
This is like when you look at who can use these weapons and the fact that both of those are two-handed, so you're not getting a shield. Like, I don't mind this. This is a decent trade-off.
Exactly.
It's going to make combat go quicker too, and it's going to make the fighter who misses 7 times on his turn not sit there and feel useless. He's still hacking away, right? So
yeah, feels like they're doing something.
Yeah. The next one is called Nick, and it is for the dagger, light hammer, sickle, and scimitar. So these light weapons usually let you make a second attack with your bonus action. That's how a light weapon works. But with Nick, the attack becomes part of the initial attack action. So this second one, you get to attack twice now as part of your attack action, and this frees up your bonus action. When you look at these light weapons, you think this is going to allow the rogue to still disengage. This is going to allow the ranger to drop a hunter's mark, right? We see that the people that are going to use these do have things to have their bonus action, like to use their bonus action. So this is actually makes them far more usable.
I find that sickle is a little odd to have under here.
I think the idea is that these are just small bladed weapons. I think it's a smaller version of a scimitar when you look at it.
Yeah, it is. I guess I'm thinking more sort of like a glaive, but it's like, I'm thinking like a massive sickle. Like,
oh, you're thinking of a scythe.
There we go. My brain.
No. Sickle is a little one-handed.
Yeah, it's the one-handed version. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The scythe would be more like a great axe. That's how I've been using it.
Yeah. The next one is called Push. This one is going to be the single most broken thing ever. This is for the Great Club, the Pike, the Warhammer, and the Heavy Crossbow. If you hit a creature, large or smaller, you could push it back 10 feet as well as do your damage.
Never fight on a cliff.
Exactly. Bridges and cliffs become scary.
Oh, I like it though.
I like it. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I like it.
More interesting. Yeah.
The next one.
Oh, sorry. This would become very useful if you're a small creature, because everything's going to be bigger than you.
Except you're going to have trouble with, a lot of, like, you've got to pump into strength for these because it's Great Club, Pike, Warhammer, Heavy Crossbow. Some of these are heavy weapons, right?
Yeah.
So,
that's true.
The next one is Sap. This is for the Mace, Spear, Flail, Longsword, Morningstar, and Warpick. So again, all these like melee ones where you just are beating on people, doing usually bludgeoning damage, but not always. The creature you hit has disadvantage on its next attack before your next turn. You hit it in such a way that it is not as effective in combat for about a round, for one attack on the round. So this one to me is flavored like when you hit them, they lose their footing for just a moment. Their next attack is weaker.
That, or I picture it as it kind of dazes them. Like with like blunt trauma type thing, it can, like with some of these, like a Morningstar or a Flail or a Mace, it can just make you dizzy.
I agree with you. My problem is that Daze still has some trauma from 3.5 days, right?
Okay,
That was a mechanic. So I'm not going to say Daze at the table when I've got legacy players that might get confused by that. So, but Fair. You're absolutely right. It could be like knocking the wind out of somebody, beating them upside the head, or hitting their arm in such a way that they're not going to be as effective on the next attack, right?
I don't like it because this is just going to be your big bads or your lieutenants or whoever your main boss is just fighting with disadvantage for the entire campaign.
But you have to remember it's only on their next attack before the next turn. So most of your big bad guys have multi-attack. The first one's with disadvantage, all the rest of them are fine.
Right. Okay.
So I hear what you're saying. This is also why I'm having very few monsters, attacking solo moving forward, right? So and if you think that's going to be a little bit weird and game breaking, Slow is the one that made me raise my eyebrows. This is for the club, javelin, light crossbow, sling, whip, longbow, and musket. On a hit, you can reduce the creature's speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. This does not stack with other attacks that's slow. I'm not wild about this because there's a bunch of range stuff in there, the javelin, like crossbow, sling, and musket. My guys can't retreat anymore as a DM.
Yeah, it seems a little.
But
I guess I just take advantage of the battlefield.
Yeah.
But again, I do want to remind you guys that when you stack this up against all the other ones, your player that has to be one of 5 classes will have to have chosen this specific weapon to have their weapon mastery active on, and they have to have that weapon equipped, and then they're going to slow a creature speed by 10 feet, which does not take away their ability to dash even. So like it's a bonus for sure. It made me apprehensive, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, there are ways around this. If I have 1 kobold running away, they'll kill that kobold now. But if I have 3 kobolds running away, one of them was still going to get away. That's not a problem. They're still going to go get reinforcements.
Yeah.
This also does nothing with magic, so Dimension Door, sorry.
Yeah, and that's just it too. Like, this is going up against things like Entangle, Darkness. Like, there are ways to slow down, confuse, hallucinatory terrain. There have always been ways to do this. It's just now martial characters get it as well.
Yeah,
And
so what I'm thinking is this is going to change a lot, because you're right, Adam. This is typically the type of debilitating effects that the casters would be doing. But now this opens them up to being blasters more, because the martial classes can do this debilitating stuff instead.
Yes. And it's going to make it so that when the enemy forces charge, 2 or 3 of them are going to be like a round later than the others, right? And this is opening up more dynamic battlefields, in my opinion, which is why, as much as I raise my eyebrows at it, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it gives the idea that the martial classes aren't just, I hit it.
I run up, I stand still, I hit this guy until he drops, I move on to the next one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we got 2 more. The next one, and this is the one that everyone online is complaining about, is Topple. This is for the quarterstaff, battle axe, lance, maul, and trident. On a hit, the creature has to make a Constitution saving throw against 8 plus your modifier plus your proficiency, or it's knocked prone. So most people have like whatever their modifier is. For a quarterstaff, I think that's versatile. So it could be dex or strength, right? But they've got to make a con save against that, or they fall prone. You have to remember, this is going to, because it's on a lance, it's going to unhorse riders. But it's largely useless for a trident if you're fighting underwater, because you don't really go prone underwater if you're like swimming in an open lake, right?
You just turn them sideways.
Exactly. And remember, when you're prone, everyone has advantage on hitting you if they're in melee beside you. But if they're far away from you, they actually have disadvantage. And your attack, you can still attack and stay laying down. So Topple isn't as deadly except for that advantage for melee, but this is going to be huge to help out your rogue who needs advantage to get that sneak attack in.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
Also, it seems like this could be a viable option for wizards that multi-class in to get this. So like a wizard with a level of fighter that wants Topple so they can use a quarterstaff in combat. But you remember that prone creatures still attack as normal, like I just said, and wizards are squishy. So if you are using this, that's like, it's not even like you can then disengage and run away. They're still going to get an attack of opportunity on you, right? So the last one that we have is Vex. And this is for like the longest list: hand axe, dart, short bow, rapier, short sword, blowgun, hand crossbow, and pistol. If you hit and deal damage, you have advantage on your next attack against that creature before the end of your next turn. Which means if you have your short sword and you're a rogue and you hit, the next round, you can add your sneak attack damage even if you otherwise couldn't, right?
That also goes for the round of if they have 2 attacks, and the first one you hit, and you don't get sneak attack because no one's there, but now you have advantage on the second attack, so you can get sneak attack even that same round.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I would do.
The other thing that I didn't point out before, which I skimmed over, was light weapons and the 2 weapon attacks. Before, it was for melee only. In this edition, they've removed that, which means your hand crossbows, which are light weapons, can fire twice in a round now. So you can actually do this with hand crossbows from a distance on the same turn if you've chosen Vex, right?
Would you still need crossbow expert to ignore the loading feat, though? The loading requirement?
Probably, yes. I haven't. We can dig into some of the specific feats.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
So when it comes to equipment, sorry, before we move on to equipment, and any thoughts about these weapon masters overall? Do we like them?
I do. I do like them. Most of what we discussed there, I was really into. I agree with you. I think it's going to make more dynamic battlefields. It's going to encourage people to play martial classes much more often. I find as people get more experienced in D&D, they tend to just lean towards casters more.
Mm-hmm.
So this is exciting. I think it's a good thing.
I completely agree. Even if they don't go into casters, they'll go into stuff, they'll go into monks, or they'll go into paladins that can kind of do various things. This revitalizes the fighter class that allows them to do a whole lot more. It gives a lot more inspiration too of how they fight and how they describe it.
I'm playing a tier 1 campaign right now with the new player's handbook, and I'm playing as a player, not a
I was just to say, you're a player?
Yeah, I know. And I'm playing a rogue right now. And so I've chosen Nick and Vex for my dagger and my short sword, which means if I hit with a short sword, then I get to add my sneak attack damage when I hit with the dagger next, and then I nick it, right? So I still have my bonus action, right? I'm level 2, so I have cunning action. So at that point, I disengage and then run away, right? So I'm able to hit and do sneak attack and then fuck off. And even at level 2, I'm feeling that. It feels really good.
Yeah.
So, it sounds like it.
Moving on to equipment. There have been a number of very small differences, but it's worth pointing out. First of all, potions of healing, this is the biggest thing, that now only takes a bonus action to use on yourself or a downed ally instead of an action. This was one of the most popular homebrews in 5th edition. Everyone said this to stay alive, because people were not healing in combat. They were healing with rests, right?
See, I like the idea of it yourself using it as a bonus action, but doing it on a downed ally, that seems like I always treated that as an action because you're having to do more movement and do more.
Yeah, so this has changed. This has made it so that the players can heal more often. And we're going to get into spells in the next episode. All of the healing spells are more powerful now.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, players will stay alive longer, and they're encouraged now to heal in combat or without having to rely on rests. So when it comes to the gear list that we have for all of the equipment, there's no more abacus, chalk, that one hurts me, common clothes, fishing tackle, hammer for some reason, sledgehammer, hourglass is a strange one to remove, mess kit, miner's kit, the pitons, which were used for climbing, the merchant's scale, sealing wax, and a whetstone. They're all gone.
That's sad.
It is sad, Tyler. I agree. I'm not sure what I think about that. People get pretty creative with this stuff.
Oh, pittance.
Yeah, exactly. And lots of times people will lean towards magic to get things done, but I always like a good use of the standard adventuring gear. Chalk is very useful. So I'm sure I think about that.
When I was looking at this, I realized that you're not carting a whetstone around. I don't know how much an abacus or a merchant's scale or a sledgehammer is going to come up in regular conversation, like on a regular adventuring day. But some of this stuff absolutely would, right? Fishing tackle is wild to me because
that is so useful.
Yeah. So anyway, so they've removed all these. They've added string, which okay. There's a cost for maps now, which is actually helpful. If someone wants to buy a map of the region, they can do that now, and it's easy. It's in the player's handbook. As well as they've broken down the cost and weight for spell scrolls for cantrips and first level spells.
Good.
That is good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those are great additions. All of the packs are included in the list for the adventuring gear and not as a sidebar now. So like the explorer's pack, the engineering pack, and all that, it's in with the gear. A vial of acid, alchemist's fire, holy water, oil, and nets are still gear. Nets have become gear. You use your attack action to throw them now, and you don't have to hit. Your target has to save.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
That makes a lot more sense.
Caltrops don't come in a bag of 20 anymore. There's just a bag that you use your action to empty on the floor. And instead of forcing a character to make a dex save or slow down by 10 feet, You force them to make a dex save, and if they fail, they just stop moving. Movement 0.
I like that. It's better.
That's very accurate. Have either of you actually ever stepped on caltrops before?
I've stepped on Lego.
No.
I've stepped on Legos and D4s, so yes.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I've stepped on lots of Lego, but I've actually stepped on caltrops before. Like that's the old game where you bounce the ball and try and grab as many as you can. And
Jacks, yeah.
Jacks. I consider Jacks caltrops.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll go through the bottom of your foot. Yeah,
painful as hell.
So,
what are caltrops actually used for? Are they a weapon?
No. The idea is that when you're getting chased through a dungeon, you throw them down to make your enemy lose a turn. Right? If you're getting chased down an alleyway or through a marketplace, you drop them onto a 5-by-foot square, and then the guards or whoever chasing you or the thugs are going to hit it, fail their DC 15 dex save, and then just lose a round so you can turn the corner and blend into the crowd, hide, whatever, right?
And you hear them scream.
They also take 1 piercing damage from this. But
it's bloody annoying.
Yeah, but you got to think, if you're being chased by the butcher probably has 1d4 hit points. Taking 1 damage is significant. So.
Oh, it is that. No, I'm not saying the damage is annoying. I'm just saying it's from a soldier's standpoint, it's annoying to step on those.
Yeah. Also, ball bearings still work the same way as ball bearings did before, but they don't come in a specific bag of 1,000. You just have a bag of them. You dump them, and that's it. And it takes 10 minutes to pick up your caltrops to recover them, or your ball bearings as well, right? So there's mechanics now for recovering them.
Good.
I don't see that being a major factor that people are going to take the time to do. If you've got to throw caltrops down, you're not going back to get them. You're in a crisis mode.
Yeah.
So
I have a very minor argument that it would take you a lot longer to pick up a bag of ball bearings than 20 caltrops.
You get your magnet out and
right. Yeah.
For ammunition, before you got the cost and the weight, it now includes firearm bullets as well as part of the ammunition. And yes, the musket and the pistol use the same ammo, and that's the stats we get for it. There's no more, or there's none of this like specific kind of shells or bullets or slugs. None of that. It's just, here's the bullets. This is them.
Right.
They operate the same way that arrows and crossbow bolts do. So the description for locks is the only place where you can find the rule that you can use sleight of hand check to unlock it, but you need thieves' tools to do it as well. This is only in locks. It's not with the rogues. It's not under sleight of hand. It's not under thieves' tools. The places you would look for this mechanic. It's under the mundane lock in the gear section, which is really strange to me, but this is an actual confirmation now, because I always ruled it the sleight of hand is what you use as a rule. Now that's actually like one of the rules. So
you know what? I always just thought it was the rule. I don't think I ever thought it was a homebrew rule to use sleight of hand to pick a lock.
It's because I said it with such confidence.
Well, yeah, I mean, probably, to be honest.
Well, what else would you use other than sleight of hand? Now, I do like that you have to have sleight of hand and thieves' tools. That's what I've always treated it as. But yeah, I do like that it's in the rule set now.
Normally I think it was just a dex check. So
okay.
There's no longer a length assigned to rope, which has come up now, and it's ridiculous. I'm going to pull up my coil of infinity rope and cut off 10 feet of it. That has come up already in my game, and it seems like an oversight. Just a reminder to anybody listening to this, it's 50 feet.
It's 50
always
feet.
It is always 50 feet.
Yeah, but
it's 50 feet, and the drop is 70 feet minimum, okay?
You tie 2 together, and there you go.
Yeah.
It becomes infinite. What? No, that's not how it works.
No. So for musical instruments, now it's listed in alphabetical order. There was a misprint in some of the 5th edition players' handbooks that listed horns in the wrong spot. They weren't in alphabetical order. That's been fixed. That was such a weird thing that I was always aware of, and it wasn't worth mentioning, but fixed now, apparently. For mounts and vehicles, barding and saddles work the same way, but they got rid of the bit and bridle. So there's no price for that anymore. I think you just kind of hand wave it when you buy a saddle.
Sure, yeah.
And honestly, I'm not doing that noodly bookkeeping, so I don't care.
Yeah, I work at a ranch. If you're going to have a saddle, you're going to have a bit and bridle as well.
Yeah. They got rid of saddlebags and the pack saddle that you would put on like a mule if it was a pack animal, right? A pack mule specifically. So they got rid of those. Like the idea is that you just use a regular riding saddle, or you put your backpacks or bags or baskets or whatever on it. So
Yeah, that's the type of thing where if my party was like, we strap it to the horse, I'd go, all right, okay.
yeah. I need to move on with the game, or I'm not getting into, how many buckles are on your saddlebags.
Yeah, right.
All the same mounts and vehicles, but there's now stats for airships with the watercraft. All ships now have the basic details that include, because before it was cost and weight, right? Now we have that plus the maximum amount of crew, passengers, and cargo, as well as an AC, hit points, and a damage threshold that you have to pass in order to even do damage. So
now, isn't this all the information that was kind of in Ghost of Saltmarsh in 5th edition?
Yes, but now it's in the player's handbook,
which is so nice.
It is. It's odd that wagons and carriages and chariots don't get these AC, hit points, and damage thresholds, but it's not game breaking. I can figure that out myself.
Yeah.
There is no more mention of trade goods at all. Like, how much is a pound of wheat? But I don't think any of us were doing that shit in the first place.
No, not me.
Who gives a fuck?
My players tried at one point, and I just kind of hand waved it. Then they never did it again.
Yeah, yep. Right? There's so many things to keep track. As though I know the price of wheat. Come on.
Depends on the city you're in.
Exactly.
What else? Ale is no longer available by the gallon. It's by the mug only. Which, yeah, you can't get a picture for the table. Like, all right, fine. The price for a banquet is also gone, and meals are no longer calculated by the day, but instead by the meal, which is far more helpful if you wake up, have breakfast, and leave, like most of us do in a tavern.
Yeah.
When it comes to the cost of services, the hirelings and messengers are just broken out into their own section. They're still there, but I was like, oh god, did they leave? No, they're just low. They're later in the book by like a half a page. Now there's also a table that breaks down how much an average NPC spellcaster will charge the party for the casting of a spell. The table breaks it down from cantrip to 9th level spells and includes the size of the settlement where you may find someone who can do this. You cannot find someone that can cast a 9th level spell in a village, for example. So there's actually information. We need to go back and
on the side of the road,
right? We need to go back and get cure wounds or whatever it is. We have to cure these diseases. We have to remove the curse. You now know how much that will cost and where you can find someone.
I like it.
It works.
Yeah, it makes it so that we don't need a caster now.
Yeah, it also gives it makes it feel more lived in.
Yeah,
like how did they survive before without you, the players who can cast spells? No, this is how.
Yeah. So there are crafting rules at the end of the chapter, and they're pretty clearly laid out for the price of the raw materials required as well as the time. Potions of healing break the rules, but that's normal. They just become more manageable and easier to access than other like magic items normally are. But we need them in D&D, so I don't mind that. And there are now clear and straightforward rules about how to scribe a spell scroll. It was littered all over the DMG and very confusing before.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Now it's a chart and it's in the player's handbook. Keep in mind, it's still too expensive and too time consuming to be a feature for either crafting or making spell scrolls. It can't really be a feature in most games, but it is there. So time for the DMs to start tinkering. Also, trinkets are no longer listed with the equipment section where you'd think that they belong. Instead, they're located at the end of the creating a character chapter because all characters get a trinket now as part of their background.
That's just fun.
Yeah.
I want a trinket. Yes.
I'm good with that.
And you don't have to hunt for it. It's in the table of contents, the index, and like you can clearly find it. Like the table is there, and the table's essentially the same one from the 2014. So you still get all that really weird stuff like teeth or a shriveled up goblin hand or whatever. So how do we feel? So that's the end up for equipment. All right, and I'm going to rapid fire my way through feats here in a second. But how do we feel about that so far?
These make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I'm okay with this. Again, there's nothing game breaking. I can't believe it, but for what I've seen so far, I think they've done a pretty good job on this new rule set. It's at least certainly here. It's much more interesting. So I'm totally fine with this.
I really like the net rule.
Yeah, I'm very happy with all of this. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Now, there's going to be a couple of times where things come. I have some more experienced players in my party where they will try and use a piton or piton, however we say it, that type of thing. So, or chalk.
Well, you can remember there's still ink, and you can still have chalk be a copper piece. Like just because it's not listed doesn't mean you can't do it. And if you're really missing the pitons or pitons, however you want to say it, if you're really missing that, there's still iron spikes, right? So if I used to use pitons to like wedge a door closed,
yeah,
iron spike is still there in the gear list, right?
Right. Okay.
So let's talk for a moment about feats. So I'm going to go through this. There's a lot, and this episode's already running a little long, so I'm going to jump into this real quick. First of all, there are different kinds of feats now. You have origin feats. You get one of these assigned to you with your background. When you pick a background, it comes with this specific feat. You don't get to choose which one. That's why you choose the specific background. That's one of the big bonuses of choosing backgrounds is here is your origin feat. Also, as a human, you do get to choose an extra one, and it can be whatever you want from the list of origin feats. Then we get what are called general feats. These are exactly how we remember them from 5e. It's an alternative option to an ability score increase, and the difference now is that you have to be level 4 or above to take them, so you can't choose one of these as a human at level 1, right? And a lot of them actually have minimum ability requirements like charisma for the actor feat or strength or dex for the athlete feat. Fortunately, all of these prerequisites are set at a minimum of 13, so they're pretty accessible. They're just going to be more difficult for some character builds that want to be good at everything. You can't, right? Like some things you can't take these feats because you tanked this specific ability. So
you tell me this now, but I will prove it wrong.
Fighting styles now. Do you guys remember fighting styles? They were there for, paladins and fighters and stuff.
That's right. Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
Now they're feats. Yep. So the fighting style is that used to be hard baked into the classes. You have the big list. They've now been broken up to become fighting style feats. These are essentially feats that can be taken if you have that class feature, and it will list it. As far as I can tell, only fighters, paladins, and rangers have access to these feats. But I didn't scour through all the subclasses, so maybe there's somewhere else.
Nope.
Fighters can actually swap out fighting styles when they level. So
I was reading that, and I don't know how I felt about that. Actually, hold on. It does say in there, the wording, it does say that they train themselves into a different fighting style. So I would say that the player has to narratively tell me how they're doing it.
I don't mind this the same way I don't mind the weapon mastery swapping with the long rest. If you head back to town and, all right, everybody, we get back to the tavern, or we're going to take 2 days in town, tell me before next session what you want to get up to. And by the way, level, you guys can swap out your fighting style. That doesn't bother me. You are changing your mindset to a different discipline. I figure if you could be an expert in 7 different kinds of mixed martial arts, you should be able to do this. You're heroes.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, sure.
The last one is epic boons. Now, these feats we've seen kind of before. In the Dungeon Master's Guide in 5th edition, they were listed as epic boons. We did a whole episode on them. I think it was episode 229.
Yeah, I remember it. I was in it.
Yeah, they're back now, but instead of being handed out as an alternative to leveling after level 20, each class automatically gets one as their level 19 class feature. Everyone, when you hit 19th level in this class, you get an epic boon, which means if you multi-class, you won't get access to these.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
We did lose about half of them that were just too freaking powerful, and those that are left, they got the math flattened out on them. Our main takeaway in 5th edition was that epic boons were very lopsided, and some were way better than others. Now they're mostly the same power level, although it can never be truly balanced, but the math has been flattened. Every one of them gives you an ability score increase in 1 by 1 up to a maximum of 30, and some powerful effect, like a random chance to not expend a spell slot of a lower leveled spell, the ability to have true sight, or the ability to teleport 30 feet after making an attack. There's no such thing as any of the racial feats so far in 5.5, and I'd be surprised to see them, considering the directions that Wizards of the Coast is going. We honestly haven't seen them, I think, since Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. Like, there's been so few of them in 5th edition in the first place.
Would it be called special feat?
Yeah, it's...
So are they special?
No, stop it. Sit down. You will end up in the corner with a dunce cap. We have the origin feats, and I think these are the ones that are going to be the most looked at and the most hummed and hawed over, because everybody's going to get to play with this sometimes, right? So I'm going to break them down really quickly to wrap up this episode. Here are the ones you get at the beginning. Alert is one of them. That used to add +5 to initiative, but now you just add your proficiency modifier. This is because it's early enough in the game that +5 is pretty broken. So you'll start off with a +2, you'll end up with a +6 by the end of the campaign. You trade the can't get surprised from 5th edition with the fact that you can now trade initiative with a willing ally as long as neither of you are capacitated. So if someone's on board with you going early, you can kind of capitalize on everybody's initiative. Any thoughts?
I feel like some people will just do it all the time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be depending on the player, how they're going, if they're going to feel that they want to use it.
I think that this is going to matter a lot for things like the assassin.
Yep, absolutely.
For the next one, we have Crafter. This is a new one. You get 20% off all purchases of non-magical items. I'm assuming because you can haggle. And you get proficiency with 3 artisan's tools. This lets you craft 1 piece of gear at the end of every long rest. But that gear will be dependent upon the artisan's tools that you're proficient in. For example, potter's tools will let you make a jug or a lamp. Weaver's tools let you make a basket, rope, tent, or net. But the items fall apart after the end of the next long rest, so you can't stockpile items.
I want to make an infinite amount of rope.
Well, you can make 50 feet of rope, damn it.
Oh.
For the healer, the new rule for this one is that if you use a healer's kit on a creature adjacent to you, they can heal one of their hit dice plus your proficiency bonus. Also, if you magically heal or by using this feat, you get to re-roll 1s on the heal.
I don't think that's overpowered. I like that because, as you said, it gives players more the ability to heal, and they're going to want to use it more.
Yeah, it encourages them to use it, so I'm okay with it.
Also, when you run out of healing potions, but someone has a healer's kit in combat, this still works, right? And I want to see more hit dice being used. I think it's a fun mechanic that's underutilized. So
Absolutely.
I like it. The next one is the lucky feat. This has had massive changes. Now you have luck points equal to your proficiency bonus, and they recharge on a long rest. You can spend a luck point to either give yourself advantage on any D20 test, or you can apply disadvantage on any attack roll against you. D20 test, by the way, Terry, because you haven't looked at the player's handbook, this is the new terminology that they have for any time you roll a D20. So attacks, skills, saves, initiative, death saves. So,
wow.
Yeah. So luck, the lucky feat can give you advantage on, your attacks or your skill checks, but also saves, death saves, and initiative, right?
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
Magic Initiate is the next one. You still get 2 cantrips and a first level spell slot from a spell list, but now you can only choose from the cleric, druid, or wizard spell lists. No more bard, sorcerer, or warlock spells. And you can take this feat more than once. I think there's only 4 feats that let you repeat over and over again. So this is one of them. The next one, Tyler, is musician. This is for you. This is a brand new one. You become proficient with 3 musical instruments of your choice.
Not enough.
When you finish a long rest, you can play a song with one of the instruments and give heroic inspiration to allies who hear it. This works for a number of allies equal to your proficiency bonus, so you can do more and more as time goes on. Heroic Inspiration is essentially a free reroll that gets handed out very infrequently during a campaign. It's pretty difficult to come by. It operates differently, I believe, than Bardic Inspiration. And so this is actually pretty kind of powerful.
That is, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, 5.5. I feel vindicated.
Yeah, you're very seen right now, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
You guys are both musicians, right? So I'm like, okay, you guys will like this.
I don't know if I can claim to be a musician anymore. And I think it was Dan that held this label on me for the longest time. I used to be in my youth, but it has been a long time, and I can't make that claim anymore.
I mean, that's fair. I think I might still be able to read music to the extent that I ever could, which is that's not much.
It's okay, Adam. I won't judge you.
But all of mine were like brass instruments. I chain smoked for 10 years. I can't play a trumpet anymore.
I'll bring my trombone by next time.
The next origin feat that we have here is the Savage Attacker. You essentially roll advantage on your damage rolls with the weapon, but now that includes ranged weapons. It didn't, I don't think, before. So yeah, you can re-roll, but you got to use the new one. Skilled. This is another one that is repeatable, and you just gain proficiency in 3 skills. You don't get expertise in them, but you do gain proficiency in them. This is actually the one that the Player's Handbook recommends that humans take as their human origin feat, just to fit the lore that humans are particularly proficient at stuff.
This is kind of nice too for a player that really doesn't know exactly what they want to do. They want to kind of have a little bit of everything and pick and choose. This kind of allows for that.
Yeah, it's going to take some characters like a fighter, which doesn't have a whole lot of like out of combat shit in their breakdown, right? Like this is going to give them stuff to do.
Yeah.
And so I actually kind of like this one. It doesn't seem powerful, but you'll get more gameplay out of it, right? It's also going to be useful for your lore bard, who's going to have expertise in this, and I get to know this and this. I got all these skills. But I wasn't going to pick up nature history. Now I will, right? Because I'm a lore bard, it makes sense. So Tavern Brawler is the second last one, and this functions largely the same, except there's no bonus to strength or constitution, which we got before. Instead of attempting to grapple when you hit with an unarmed strike, you now automatically push the creature.
We've already discussed this.
Yeah. Also, you can reroll 1s on damage rolls you make with unarmed strikes. So, hey, monks.
Oh.
And the last one is simply just tough, and it is exactly the same. It's a bonus to your hit points, right? So, how do you guys feel about the origin feats and feats in general?
Look, I'm okay with this. There's some of them I was excited by there. I feel like I'm more excited by these than the previous setup.
I would agree. One thing I really like about this too is a lot of the times with artisan tools and whatnot, you'd get next to no use out of this, whereas some of these you get to use it like crafter or musician, or some other of these. Like you actually are going to be using your artisan tools.
And there's more stuff about those in the other general feats and stuff as well, right? So we just don't have time to go through a long ass list of 1 billion feats. So,
exactly.
I will say this: most of the feats got an update. So if you think you know how it works, read it closely. They are different from 5th ed, although spiritually they're very similar, but mechanically little noodly differences. So how do we feel about equipment and feats? Like these are the parts of character creation that are kind of afterthoughts for a lot of people. Do we feel like this has been a good redesign on these chapters?
Yeah, I think it's making it more interesting. You know, I'm starting to get excited here because I'm thinking of different ideas and different ways to use these where previously I wouldn't have been so inspired.
I completely agree. It's no longer an afterthought. This is a part of when you are creating your character. This is an integral part of it. It's not just at the end, like backgrounds. It was just, okay, yeah, I guess I need that and I need that. This is, I need to figure this out because this is going to be part of the makeup of who my character is.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway here is that when I look at the weapon masteries and when I look at these origin feats specifically as well, although I could do this for all of them, I'm inspired to put these on monsters. The Tavern Brawler on an NPC can be very powerful. The ability to do, to vex for like a boss fight lieutenant at the end of a tier, like these could be really great, and the players will be used to these mechanics already, so it's not going to feel like it's coming out of left field, right?
I actually really like that idea too of if your players can use it, so can your monsters.
Yeah, if you can do it, I can do it.
Right, we'll get out of here, folks, but thank you very much for tuning in. It was an absolute pleasure to take you through some of the new rules and the feats and the equipment and the weapon masteries of D&D 5.5. I wish you nothing but 20s and treasure, and we'll see you next time.
That's all for this transition episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Please take a second to engage with a like, follow, subscribe, comment, or review to help push our engagement. Thanks for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
If you'd like to support us, we have a store with some merch and a donate button on our website, itsamimic.com. You can also head to itsamimic.com to find a comprehensive episode guide and more information about the show. We do have a Patreon, which not only offers access to our exclusive Discord server, but also hosts over 100 episodes, including a variety of bonus episodes covering topics like 5th edition book reviews and the campaign builder, spells and gods, fae, homebrew inspiration, and even the Blood War. If you'd like to submit any mailbag questions, please reach out to us through any of the social media links in the show notes of this episode, or send us an email at info@itsamimic.com. This has been an episode of It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.